to welcome everybody here to Cleanup Community Centre for the launch of Andy Redican's book, Deeply Rooted. I'm wondering, in a way, what in the name of God is me standing up here, because when I look around me, I know I'm among friends and relations and everything else, and yeah, it is a great privilege to be asked for to do something like this. But I suppose, first of all, in the launch of the book, we're looking at, to start with, the cover. And I didn't even talk to Andy about this, but this looks like a painting probably taken from a photograph or something like that. And it's a view I'd be fairly familiar with yourself. He starts off the book with a memoir, and most of it I would be quite familiar with, because I have long memories going back to, as a child, having gone to parties, etc., in the Redican household. Can't remember exactly what it might have been for, but I seem to be to remember parties in the Redican household. What we have here is, as I say, it starts with a memoir. And a lot of the stuff that he goes through in this book would be very familiar to those of us of an older age group here. We take, for instance, the first story after the memoir there, for Lightning. That would have struck a chord with me in this guy and the character that he portrays of a very, very hard-working character. It's work, work, work. And you start to think, well, what's been driving this man to work so hard in such a way? But that brought back memories to me as well of my own mother and her speaking about her time growing up in the 20s and 30s. The poverty of the people after the War of Independence, after the Civil War, and right into the 30s and 40s. Poverty was a great driver for some people. As we go down through the list of stories, there is I think 16 stories. Each one of them, in essence, a story of a storyteller of the Shanachie. We would all remember sitting around the fire, listening to some of the older generation tell about their young days. And the Shanachie had a special way of putting a skin on it, if you like. Andy is probably one of the last of that generation, but in that he has the wherewithal, he has the education, he has the ability, and he has the inclination to be able to be an entertainer or be a storyteller. And let that be his involvement in drama, or in writing, or in telling the story. And to hear him tell a story is in itself entertaining. And in each one of these stories that we go through in the book, you can hear Andy telling that story. As I said to Father Tommy there, I'm not going to steal his thunder, because he'll have plenty to say on this. He's of Andy's generation. I think I have a year or two on him there. one story there that I would have been drawn to, and that was the story of the challenge. The challenge, of course, is something that would be dear to Andy's heart. It's the GAA, it's football. It's a story that I would have been familiar with because a neighbour of mine would have told the story. And I think Andy might have taken one or two little liberties with the story and embellished it a wee bit and what have you, but it's still basically the same story that I would have heard before. You know, Andy, all his life, has been involved in the GAA. And just something that comes into my mind. When I was a young lad, I used to hear about Andy playing a football game one time. I think it might have been a junior game or something like that, Fianna versus Glencar, back sometime in the late 60s. And there was a boy wonder of 17 had come in to play with Fianna at the time. Some of the older generation would be know John Eddie Wynn. And at 17, while he was quite good, he mightn't have had the strength to deal with some of the old flyboys on any team like that. So the selectors at the time were a little bit worried that John Eddie might get hurt. So, like Mayo's bringing Andy Warden from the bench, Andy Redican was sprung from the bench. Or was it a bench? There was no benches at those times, was there? The back of a ditch or from under a tree or whatever it was. So the ball Andy went out and he introduced himself. Good shoulders here, man. Sends him flying. But he comes back. Andy meets him. He says, listen, my friend, it's not a bossing you're dealing with here. So as a young fella, he was well able to stand up for himself. I want the last story, and basically it's going back to school. And I suppose as we get older, we all like to remember, we all reminisce on our school days and what have you. And he closes the book very neatly. The last few words in it are the door closed behind them. You would normally, in a novel or whatever, get it in italics, the end, but it's very appropriate, the door closed behind them. I now introduce you to the man that's going to launch the book, a good friend of Andy's, a good friend of everybody here, Reverend Father Tommy Greenan. So I'll hand you over to Father Tommy to officially launch the book. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
I welcome everyone from far and near. Are you hearing? Is it okay?
Yeah.
Especially, of course, Andy and Irene and their family. The whole family is here today, which is wonderful. Many of you may be experienced in book launching. But I can assure you it's a very new experience for me. Only twice before did I attend a book launch, and that was as a spectator. Do you know, I'm just afraid of my life that what I have to say could turn into a homily which I'm used to giving in the next building here. And I want to make sure that if that happens, you're going to take action straight away. You can heckle, or you can walk out, or you can do whatever you want, or you can have a silent protest. Now, in all seriousness, I'm here because I couldn't say no. Who can say no to Andy Redican? Or Andy Redican, as it's told?
Papa.
Which one should we use? Oh, he says Andy Redican. But he said if you use the word Redican around these parts, you'll be right. Andy has been at the very heart of community life here in the parish of Fina and in the parish of Drumkeeran for nearly 60 years. So it's a real honour for me to answer his call on this very special occasion. Even if I am a little on unfamiliar ground. Suddenly it dawned on me, you see, that I had to launch this book. And then to try to speak words of wisdom in doing so. Well, I have my doubts. I'm not too sure. So I crave your indulgence. And do you know, I might get away with it because I don't see any ref around with a red or black card in his pocket. My very first task was to get my hands on this new book. And then read it. I have done that, and I'm fascinated really. And he is a teacher, a writer, and a playwright, and has been continually called to leadership roles all his life. But it's only in recent times that he has heeded the calls of his own family and indeed many friends, and decided to bring some of his essays and short stories together under one cover. It's a delightful publication of 225 pages, as you can see. It's called Deeply Rooted. It reveals a writer and a storyteller of exceptional talent. Well, it all began in Drumrusk North, near the tram road, as many of you will know, in the parish of Fina, on in February the 17th, 1942. Andy himself takes up the story. Our house, perched on a hill, looked down on Loch Nacargan, sometimes in its still tranquil waters, mirroring the hills of Corrabeth and Corraford. Sometimes too, hundreds and hundreds of white horses, Nakopalili Buana they used to call them, do you remember? Raced to the shoreline to splash onto the road. And from my window in the bedroom, I could look out on Schneeveneeren, its dark and mysterious and haunting bulk, teasing and captivating my youthful imagination. What lovely, lovely words. That is the beautiful, idyllic scene that graces the front cover of this book. And I really believe it also, that scene that provided the backdrop for Andy's fertile imagination and wonderful play with words, as he frequently describes the beauty of God's creation around his native place. He has extraordinary insights into life, especially life on the small farm, large family, rural scene of County Leitrim, and the plague of immigration that has befallen it. We are all very aware that our world is changing rapidly. Indeed, faster than at any other time in history. The world we read about in this book was very much a reality 50 to 70 years ago, not a long time ago. How can we keep this old world? How can we preserve it and hand it on to future generations? Writers like Andy, indeed, and all of us who remember that world are hoping and praying that we can do something so that the younger generation, especially the grandchildren generation, will learn about the real world of their grandparents, their trials and tribulations, their joys and achievements, their courage and neighbourliness, and steadfast faith which sustained them through thick and thin. There is a strong desire in parish and community level to preserve that heritage, and we should all get involved. We must encourage and support our writers and our storytellers and the various active parish groups. Today, our Fina community is playing a small part in preserving and handing on the traditions of our forefathers as we honour and thank our native son, Andy Redican, an exceptional storyteller, a community builder beyond compare. Andy's new book, the book you have in your hands, deeply rooted, presents us with, as Peter said, 16 short stories, one more gripping than the next, and each a gem in its own right. Now, we could, I wish there was time to go through all the little snippets of every one of them, but that's not possible today. A few are real history, but they all refresh our memories of bygone days and a way of life that's almost disappeared. It's the kind of book you can't put down. Every story depicts a real life situation, posing problems, seeking solutions. Andy is a noted playwright and drama director, so it's no wonder that his characters simply jump out at us from the page. Most are fictional, of course, but similar character types were to be found for generations in every townland in Leitrim. Take, for example, as Peter mentioned the name, one story called Fork Lightning. The story about Martin Duffy, his tenacious and God-fearing wife, Annie Kate, and the 5 sons that abandoned them and are all working in England. It's a story that makes us think and makes us ask why, makes us ask questions. Generally, the stories examine the sometimes harsh realities of rural living, and they're often question old family values and obsolete ways of working and living. They are good humour and funny. They often, indeed, as I was reading, I often found myself chuckling at the surprise turn of events on the page. There's lots of family rivalry, lots of counterplots and plots. There is at times a thin line between love and hate, family, loyalty, and settling scores. But behind the whole lot, there is an unshakable faith in God, a firm belief in the power of the Sacred Heart and the saints, while Mary, the Mother of God, is every mother's guide and protector. And he uses the short story format to great effect. We get to grips quickly with each story. And then we race along nicely until we reach the climax. And lo and behold, we just can't wait to get to the next story. One special quality about the stories in general is that nearly all end on a very positive note. We are never left wondering who done it. No, life simply must go on or begin again, as the case may be. And let's now just have a look at a few endings. They're chosen in no particular order, but see what you think. Again, first, the immigrant. Page 199. If you want to check them out, fine. It has a fascinating ending, really, but there's a nice twist in the tale. A special son of Drumkeirn and North Leitrim takes us down memory lane. You'll really enjoy the descriptions of the countryside and the names of all the townlands. Age or time doesn't matter, just keep talking. Page 207. This is how he finishes. I offered him a lift as he was about to move off. He dismissed me. No thanks. I'm grateful for the offer. My son is picking me up at Flynn's Rock. He's at the mining experience. I was there 3 years ago. The old man was determined. But it's a good stretch from here, I protested. Oh, it is, he replied enthusiastically. But I wouldn't miss that walk for all the world. They boast about Killarney and Connemara. There is no more beautiful scene than that. Looking down on Loch Allen, Schlievenier and the Quelca Mountains. You know, when I'm walking along there, I be beholding the most magnificent scene in Ireland. This is my son's third visit. He says Drumkeirn and North Leitrim is the most beautiful place in all the world. You have a marvellous graw for Drumkeirn, I remarked, as he turned to move off. He stood erect and proud. Breathes there a man with soul so dead, who never to himself has said, this is my own, my native land. And he wheeled round to move off. Wait, I called. You never told me your name. Nor did you tell me yours, says he with a roguish smile. That will be our secret. We will meet next year at the 150th anniversary of St. Bridget's Church. Please God, we will. And we'll make the introductions then. Is that a bargain? As he outstretched his hand to grasp me so tightly it nearly hurt. Turning, he set off with the gait of a youth. Shortly, he turned and raised his hand in salute. Slán agus Ballad. Isn't it lovely? Ah, yeah. Very, very, very interesting. The next one, page 31. Go for the priest and the doctor. Now, this is a very interesting little story because it's more or less a true story. And we are privileged to be part of a major family crisis which was very carefully handled according to the custom of the time. Very traumatic, a real event. The spiritual and the medical combination is unbeatable. Thank God we have not lost our touch in caring for the sick. And it's important to have courage and to tell the truth, all combine for a positive end to the story, as we see there on page 35. I tiptoed upstairs and peered around the door. He looked more restful. When I came down to the kitchen, Mother was putting on her great coat. Your father has the horse and sidecar ready. There will be a huge crowd for confessions for the holy souls. So we will be in lots of time. You will be all right till we get back. The rest of us will get confessions. So we can do our visits on All Souls Day. Please God, Aidan won't now be one of them, my mother added gratefully. I tiptoed again back up to the room. I gazed down on a much more restful Aidan. I thank God that he had answered my prayers. As I travelled the long journey to Mohull, sometimes almost dizzy as I avoided the potholes on roads that at that time were untarred. Not alone did he keep me safe as I cycled, he also gave me courage and boldness to speak to the doctor and the priest in a way that I never thought I could. The Holy Spirit did the talking, I concluded, as I tiptoed back out of the room, realizing for the first time that I hadn't eaten anything all that day. There will be no Halloween games in our house tonight, so I think it will be safe enough to cut a slice of the barn brack. Maybe I'll get the ring, I laughed, as I found the plate of dinner Mother had left prepared for me. Another lovely ending. We're making a little progress. Fainaville to fulfill. Now we're very close to home. The villa we called it. Remember, don't you? Most of us do. Officially, I think they used to call it Fainaville Centre. Do you remember that? That was, well, not so much remember it as that was the way it was advertised. Fainaville Centre. The Mecca Ballroom of the West. Revelers rewarding paradise. And who could resist paradise? Now, tell me, who could resist paradise? Patsy Comboy was a bit of a genius and a way ahead of his time, especially when it came to advertising. You know, the team of that time, the real dubs of that time, was the Cavan team. The team of the 40s and the early 50s, Cavan, that was it. And the Cavan team had great support in this part of the world. Indeed, many people used to cycle to Cavan, Breffley Park, for games. So when the new dance hall came and people were telling about how big it really was it a surprise that they said, you know, the dance floor in the villa is bigger than Breffley Park, and the bar is longer than the street in Balnamore. All the tradesmen in the country worked at Fainaville to build the new hall, the biggest ever. I was 11 years old, and I remember the first dance night very well. You may say, you're kidding. You couldn't. Yes, I could. Do you know why? Well, I live only 500 yards across the hill there, and from the other side, the beautiful music wafted over Greer Law. You see, there was no trees, there was no plantations, nothing. So the music came wafting. If the wind was coming right, you'd hear all the tunes perfectly. If the wind wasn't so good, you'd know there was music in the distance in Fainaville. We all knew Patsy. We all knew his whole family. He was quite a character. They tell us he made his fortune in America. He was a very hard worker and he paid good wages. Some people, as we have all read and heard, rush to judgment. But most did not. And in the best tradition, as I talked about in the last little story, Patsy did not die without the priest or the doctor. Father McCabe made sure of that. You know, when you think of it, isn't it hard to believe it all happened at all? Especially when you pass up by Shuhan Junction, all around Gormley's Brae. Did it happen at all? But it did happen. And it's now part of our folklore and tradition. You will enjoy this story on page 69. And it's the last couple of page 59 to page 69. Let's go through to the end of the villa. One of Patsy's convoy's famous advertisements wrote, "We promise that Fainaville and its dances shall represent an impression that shall linger in the corridors of time." How right he was. We can rhyme off the names of the bands that played in Fainaville. They came from Dublin, Belfast, and from overseas. Ian McIntyre, Johnny Butler, Peggy Dell, Harry Smart, Ronnie Monroe, and my own favourite, Columba Gallagher. Does anybody remember Columba Gallagher? That's Fainaville to fulfill. Well done, Andrew. Thank you. Now, little interesting. We're getting more technical now. This one's called the Guggerer. I really got a great kick out of this short story, the seventh short story, the Guggerer. The what? The Guggerer. Do you think there's an app for that one? Do you think so? Doubtful. But I'll tell you what, look up page 68. Page 68 describes it better than any app. And Lisanne and Jimmy are the perfect role models of how to set potatoes in ridges. Requirements: a Stevie and an operator, a bucket of splits, and a Guggerer, boy or girl. Read all about it. It's a lovely story. But now I have a little Guggering story to add for myself, because many a time I got too bothered, or if they were paying really well, a half crown. That was something in the 1940s. But this one is the Bishop and the Guggerer. Confirmation. Just as now confirmation was big, the bishop came from confirmation every 2 years or 3 years or whatever it was. And as he came, the same regulations were put in force. The best kids in the class were lined up to answer the questions that the bishop was sure to ask. So this time, Bishop James Joseph McNamee, who was from the county Antrim and wasn't too familiar with all the intricacies of farming in this part of the world, he wouldn't have known our traditions. But anyway, he decided on this particular day that the subject for examination was the third commandment. And the question was, what is the third commandment? you shall not keep, you must keep holy, what is it? The Sabbath day. Remember? You must keep holy the Sabbath day. What does that mean? One little kid said, my Lord, no servile work. Good, said the bishop. But what's servile work? Another little fella said, mowing, and another little girl said, oh, ploughing. Yeah, very good, said the bishop. But it takes a man to do that kind of work. What's servile work? For children like yourselves. Silence. Googering, said the little boy. Silence. Bishop was flummoxed. Turned round to the parish priest, the canon. He said, Canon, what's googering? And they all burst out laughing. Oh, the seventh story is a beautiful story. It did actually happen. It happened. It has entered the folklore. And let's hand it on. My very last story. The shortest of them all, actually. Something lost. Something found. Page 209. It's a lovely little essay about a husband and wife, a man and woman of faith. This is how the heart works. Thank you, Irene and Andy, for sharing it with our world. Most Sacred Heart of Jesus, I place all my trust in thee. That has entered our folklore. It's a pearl of great price. It's my great pleasure now to launch this wonderful new book by Andrew Redican called Deeply Rooted. Congratulations, Andrew. Congratulations to all your family. It is going to be a wonderful success. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Tommy. Another storyteller, isn't it? And the polish he can put on that and the delivery. I now call on the author of the book, Andy Redican. Andy, as he is known around here. Will not be polite. It's not Andrew, it's Andy. Andy, we call you to the podium.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm nervous, believe it or not, and I'm wondering who Father Tommy was talking about most of the time. But it must be me, because it's about a book I wrote. So, thank you for all the wonderful words you have said. So, I have to say, I'm very happy to be here. I have wonderful memories of my youth in this parish. Really wonderful memories. No, we didn't have much. Not many, not few as much anyway. But one thing we had our neighbours, and we had our, maybe we could say poverty, which was an equaliser. We weren't very stylish. There was many a patch across the backside. And there was many an elbow over the jumpers. But that didn't matter. And we went to school barefooted from beginning of May into October. Boys and girls. Not one person, boy or girl, wore shoes in our school internationally. it was a lovely place to live. We had wonderful neighbours. We had little material, but we had much, much more than that. And so a word that I suppose we were reluctant to use when I was small was the word love. But we did have love. Loving parents, loving neighbours, and a loving community. You might ask, why did I write this stories? I wrote them because I felt that this mad world of technology, in this world, all the young people, if we don't do something about it, they won't know one thing about their parents or their grandparents or their great-grandparents. I have 15 grandchildren, and there's 4 of them in London, and now they're living down in Winchester. Keelan, their dad, is here, all my family's here. I just saw Andrea come in the door. Well done. It was a bit of family sickness, but great stuff. I wanted to tell them the life that was their grandparents lived and their great-grandparents lived. It was fragile, but we were happy. And we were very, very happy people. And I wanted them to know that. I wanted to know about the neighbourly way people were, sharing things. And you'll find it in the book. I can still see Dad, God rest him, going on his Cayley, and he had a gabardine coat and there was a pocket in it, and he would take a bottle of milk Mom, God rest her, had prepared for him, to bring to a neighbour who had no milk for the winter. And when we had, as I used to say, when our cows were dry, he often came home with a bottle of milk in the pocket from his Cayley. That was the sight of life. There was sharing. There was a great sense of camaraderie amongst families, and I wanted that to come across. Children, we were a social neighbour. We governed, as Father Tommy told you there. We picked potatoes. We cut wheat turf. And I can tell you, this happened. God rest my brother Seamus. I suppose he was about 11 or 12 at the time. And if he was I was a year and a half younger. And Dad, God rest him, cut the turf up and onto the bank. He caught them and put them in the wheelbarrow. And when the wheelbarrow was full, he lifted it up. And I had a rope in front, and I pulled it out, and he tossed it out. It was child labour. But we were as happy as could be. We weren't bored like the way they are now. And we hadn't to worry about the summer when it would come in the holidays, what you would do with your children, and that was our life. And it was another thing about it. Boredom was a great sense of curiosity. You might have one murder in the year. Now we have practically murder every day. I wanted to tell them about that life as well. And above all, I wanted to tell them that we had time. Time to share. Lean across hedges to chat. Stand on the bottom of the road to chat. That was something that was precious time. We don't have time now. Parents grab their children in the morning and they put them into the car and they bring them off and they put them into creches or into babysitters. They don't get home till 7 or 8 in the evening. There's very little time with families like we had that time. That was a time when you had the father and mother, the granny and granddad, all together and family. It was security for young children. I pity the young children nowadays. I wanted to tell them about a life like that as well. But it was a time too, there was a lot of things hushed up. And I remember when as a child, I often used to go out to look into the garden under the head of cabbage to see if there was a baby there. There was an extraordinary hush about sexuality. I don't think that word even existed at that time. I think the first time sexuality came was when Oliver Flanagan brought it up on the Late Late Show. Anyway, there was an awful hush about that. And I can still see my mother, God rest her, putting the turkey into a box and trying to conceal her that we didn't know about. And we didn't know where the turkey was going. We were very innocent. And you'll find one of the stories there, the name of it itself will tell you, and it's called Roosters, Cocks, Teas and Queer Fellas. That's what it was. Because they were, I won't say any more of the story. I think you'll enjoy the story. But the innocence of a child, he didn't know what, when they were talking about, he always talked in couch language. So they were talking to the woman beside him. They said, I brought the turkey to the queer fella. And sometimes, and then some, oh, the turkey there, oh, the turkey cock there, he was an awful thief, you know. And that was the couch language. So, it's no wonder that the child was very, 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 felt guilty that he happened to be involved when he brought a turkey. And I'd like maybe Rena, my granddaughter, might take a little bit of the story. But we'll take it down for you, Rena. You might be able to read it. Now, to take from that story.
Mrs. Galooly must have spotted our arrival, for she thundered out the door, demanding to know who sent us. Before he could reply, she had demanded a second time, "Who sent ye? In the name of God, who in their right mind would send out two gossoons, barely out of the cradle of the turkey?" "Me mother," we stumbled together. "And who's your mother? For when I see her, I'll give her a bit of my mind, sending gossoons with the turkey. Did you ever hear the like?" she harangued. "Mrs. Taft sent us," I croaked. "She couldn't move with her back," I added hastily, hoping it would soften her anger, and fervently wishing she would not harm mother, for she was awful wicked. "Here, give me that," she barked, snapping the rope. "Now you get away up there, and if I see either of you trying to peep through that hedge, I'll report you to Father Dolan. Do you hear me now?" As she moved away, we could hear her continuing to scold. It's sinful for children to be at such occasions."
That's that's when they brought the turkey. The two boys brought the turkey to the turkey cock when the mother was unable to do so. So she later on, that he realised that he was involved in sin, and his conscience was getting so. He's going now. He's on his way to confessions. He had to go because the father and mother made him. He had escaped it for 3 months. He had an excuse every month, but the father made him go and they let him. So he had nothing starting now.
I departed, a confusion of trouble and joy. I'd made up my mind. I was not going to confession, but I would buy 60 bullseyes with my sixpence. As I most unwillingly trundled along, I went over all the happenings that heaped such heavy sin on my soul. I recalled Mrs. Galooly's threat. "He'll deal with you and your sinful behaviour." Earlier she had grumbled. "It's sinful for children to be at such occasions." No way can I tell the priest I was there, I resolved. Then I remembered that Mrs. Keelty told us, as she prepared us for a fresh confession, that if we made a bad confession, we would go to hell. Only a bishop could take our sins away in a confession. I was doomed no matter what path I chose. If you ever want to get anything very badly, you pray to the Sacred Heart. My Aunt Ellie had often advised me, just say, "Sacred Heart of Jesus, I place all my trust in thee," she added. I launched into prayer to the Sacred Heart, the Blessed Virgin Mary, St. Jude, but they wouldn't listen to such a sinner, I decided. So to be safe, I decided to make an appeal to the other side by saying, "God is good, the devil isn't bad either." I was by now standing on the little hill looking down at the church. The cross gleamed in the sunlight.
So, hush in it. So life wasn't always right that I'm trying to pick. There were had its drawbacks. One of the stories, I might just read a little piece of one of the stories. I think it's over there. I think anyway. It's parish rivalry, and Peter mentioned it there, and it was a story that was told to me. I'm talking away from the thing. I have an awful habit of that, you know, because I suppose we never use these on stage and so on. But anyway, it was a story told to me 2 years ago, and it was about an actual story. But be quite honest with you, and I have to say as truthful as can be, none of the characters in the story are the characters, because I don't know who. It was a football match that took place in around the 1950s, but it was a challenge between Mull and Feenan, and I wanted to. Let's see. I have to get the glasses now. That's what age does, but it doesn't matter. Sorry about that. I'm holding you up, but I won't be too long. Let's see. Okay. Okay, the teams arrived on the field, the studs sizing each other. Eventually, Tierney started towards the Mull team. Doherty and Hurricane advanced towards him. On meeting, they shook hands, more in response to custom than in friendship. We'll supply the ref. Yees have home advantage. Feely will ref, Doherty said offhand. Sure, he knows nothing about football. Tierney was flabbergasted. He might know as much as about half of ye that once has played. We have no one else. It's a home game for ye. We're entitled to supply the referee. Doherty was steadfast. All right, but Feely can't. Tierney didn't finish. Doherty cut him off. He'll have to do. We have no one else. What about the big pool? What if the ball was in there? Hurricane was pointing over to a pool of water at least a dozen feet in diameter. Teams, come over here, demanded Tierney. Stephen Feely is reffing. What? Him? Exploded Brady. That's enough, put in Doherty quickly. Feely, come here, shouted Doherty. Feely shuffled over to them, attired in waders and ice skates. You're ref, Feely. Have you a whistle? No better man to ref, boasted Feely, the smell of alcohol clearly coming from his breath. No better man to ref, and I have a whistle, as he placed a finger and thumb into his mouth to send out a loud, screeching, deafening whistle. See that pool over there? When the ball was in there, the ref would blow the whistle. He would go in and bring it out and throw it between two players. Is that clear? Some just nodded. Is that clear? Donnelly demanded. There was a loud yes response. Based on a true story, and I'm sure some people will remember that pool in that place there. I won't take up much more of your time. There's just one other thing I'd like to bring across. The world I grew up in was a lot of superstition. And I just read one little paragraph to finish up before I say thank you to all of you. I'm sorry. Okay. This is from the break. A magpie alighted on the new grass on the ridge of the thatched dwelling, greatly in need of new thatching. She hesitated a moment before tripping down lightly in two short flights to perch near the porch and peer down on the stunned silence. To the utter consternation of the onlookers, she gently dropped down and alighted close to the south. Instinctively, all the men blessed themselves as Rex, the dog, sprang towards the bird that immediately flew off, chattering nicely. The rooster also took flight, but soon strutted back to stand boldly facing old Early, to cock-a-doodle-doo, not once but twice. Early, a deadly spite, Immediately made the sign of the cross, whinging nasally in a low, crying mumble. That's twice bad luck. Looking directly at the sow. She's not going to make it. I'm going for home before some of us escape. Just about superstition. I think I've kept you a long time, but I just wanted to give you a little flavour of things in it. I enjoyed writing the book. I really enjoyed writing the book, and I have to say thank you to Irene down there, who was so patient. I have a little place out the back, and sometimes I call it the dog house. But it's great. It's a great, peaceful place. And they all encouraged me, and I want to thank you. Thank you, Irene, and I want to thank the family as well. And I want to say to all of you, you'll enjoy the book. I think you will. I know you will. Because it's about life, and the good thing about it was, not one story ended in a bad note. They were always uplifting at the end. I believe that's the way life should be. And I hope that you go away tonight uplifted with the thought of reading Deeply Rooted. Thank you very much. Just before I go, I want to thank Peter, Father Tommy, most sincerely. I want to thank the hall here, the Community Centre Management. I want to thank all the people who have prepared food and brought food and sold books on the way in. And I want to make particular mention of Katrina, my niece's husband, Mike Ruddock. He did a phenomenal job on Facebook. I think there was 10,000 had looked at it the day before yesterday at it, and he put a lot of effort into it. But I must say thank you to all of you, every one of you that's involved in helping this job tonight, and a special thanks to all of you that came here to listen to young fellas like myself, Dr. Tommy, and the old fellow over here. There is food here. Go up and make sure don't go out, because when it's there, use it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the launch of Deeply Rooted. We all know why you're here, written of course by Andrew Redican. And before I go any further, I won't be calling him Andrew from here in, because any that's from here, you all know that he's Andy. That's his official title for media work and all that. So To be Andy anyway, in case you're wondering, is it two different people? It's the same person. If in case there's a fire, God, I hope the fire officer doesn't come, but anyway. The exit doors are to my right, the door you come in, and there's another one out the back. And mobile phones off, if possible. And don't forget, there's refreshments later, and a lot of you have got the wine already. I want to welcome you all. It's great to see such a great crowd. We have some lovely prizes over here for a raffle. And we're not having a raffle. Sorry, I know we're not having a raffle. Andy said there's such a great crowd, we might have a raffle. But anyway. I want to welcome Andy and Irene and all the family here. Also the man who's going to launch it here today, Sean Breffney Flynn. You all know Sean Breffney, a great character, and we'll talk a bit more about him later on. I suppose myself and Andy has a lot in common. We're both blow-ins. Andy came from Feen and I came from Bundoran, so there wasn't much in the difference. I think I came about 5 miles further than Andy. Both involved in a lot of committees, I suppose, down through the years, mostly the GA and the drama. And I think myself and Andy has done about a dozen plays together, so I think we know each other very well. Sean Ryn's still around. We started school on the same day. Now there's one for you. And I know the first thing you're thinking down there is there's a clear difference in them two's ages. They couldn't have started school the same day. But we did start school the same day, 52 years ago last month, right where we were standing. Now, for anyone that doesn't know that, there's something for you to digest. The difference was Andy was the teacher and I was just the pupil. This was the old vocational school. As you know, Andy has been a great community person since the day he arrived, you could say. It's amazing to think that, is it 50 plus years doing the Notes on the Observer, Andy?
49.
Well, I was close to it, wasn't I? It's 50 minus years since you... So 49 years doing the Jumpio Notes on the Observer, that's really something, and been involved in an awful lot of organisations. And I'm not going to go on about Andy because when some of you have bought the book, or most of you, his Wheel of Life is in the first 9 or 10 pages, so you can read all about his activities down through the years in the book. When Andy told me about his new book, I asked him, was it fiction or was it true stories? And he said it was fiction. I said, you could have done one with true stories. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, with all the plays and all the places we've been, you could have wrote a book. It might even be a better seller. And he said, explain. And I said, he said, tell me a couple of them. And I said, do you mind me telling people here today? And he says, no, not at all. And one of the stories was when we went to New York about 10 or 11 years ago with Widow's Paradise. And when we arrived in New York, anyhow, we got to the hotel, the first thing they had to do was go to an Irish pub. I was the only one to stay back in the hotel just to make sure everything was all right. And I did go down after a while, but I was back home fairly quick, or back at the hotel. And the rumour the next morning, anyhow, that they all, 8 or 9 of them, got a taxi back from the Irish pub, and that Andy Redican was in the back seat. And one female of the cast was on one knee with her arm around him, and another female of cast member was on the other knee with her arm around him. And I think they had great fun in the back of the taxi coming home. Jesus. But before you get the wrong idea, and Irene was there as well. So and the other one was, we were doing a play here called Cash and Delivery. It was about 2 years later. And Andy had to wear long johns in the play. And he didn't wear them until maybe a few nights beforehand. And he came down one night anyway and came out on the stage with the long johns. And we all kind of noticed there was something different. Very much different, I have to say. He picked up Irene's when he was coming out the door instead of his own. Let's say there was a lot to the imagination that night, anyhow. But they didn't really fit Andy, and it wasn't that they were too big now. That's, you know, we could go on a few more, Andy. So I did notice Andy said this was his first book. So maybe the next one might be true stories, Andy, and people will have a chance, will know those two yarns already. I did have a chance to look at Deeply Rooted, The first compliment I have to make on it is that I think the print is absolutely brilliant on it. It's very easy to read. You get some books, and I suppose it's my age, but the lines are on top of each other. I think it's absolutely excellent. I just got through a few stories yesterday, very enjoyable. I actually think that some of you might be reading it down there at some stage, and you come to a bit and you say, Jesus, that's about me, although he used a different name on it. And it may be possible, so keep an eye on that one. A few things I noted on the run-in for the promotion of the launch. As I said, this is the first book by Andy, so Irene, he'll be in the doghouse for another while out the back next year or the year after, doing the second one or a third one. So this time next year or the year after, we'll probably be here again. I think the timing of it was perfect. He launched last night in Fina, then the clocks went back last night. He launches today in Drumkeeran, and from today on, the nights are getting longer. And what do you do when the nights are getting longer? You watch television and you read books. So I think the timing was perfect on that one. Said a great launch last night in Fina. I wasn't at it, but I heard all about it. So well done, Andy, on that one. And we have here to launch the book officially Sean Breffney Flynn. Sean is a great Drumkeeran man. He's a great Leitrim man. He's a great man to sponsor stuff for Leitrim and Drumkeeran. If anyone has any bother around Dublin, he's always there to give a hand. Just give him a ring. And I know he helped me out one day. I was up there, so fair play to you, Sean. Never let you down. He lives in Dublin, but I suppose the way we'll put it is his heart is deeply rooted in Drumkeeran and Leitrim. So well done to Sean. So now I'm going to hand you over to Sean to officially launch Deeply Rooted.
Good evening and welcome to everybody. Mr. President, Reverend Fathers, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honour to be here today on this historic occasion to launch Andy Redican and his family. In 1967, two events of great significance happened. Meath won the All-Ireland and Andy Redican arrived in Drumkeeran from the ancient abbey walls of Fena. His contribution to community activity since arrival has been enormous. In the GAA, he did immense work at every level of the organisation. The GAA club went through a difficult early time in the early 70s, which involved an appeal to the Connacht Council. Andy Redican and Father Oliver Kelly Oliver Kelly led the way and won the appeal. The Drumkeeran and GAA club was back in business. The regeneration of the club was financed by Charlie Flynn. Andy is president of the Leitrim GAA. In 2011, Andy was inducted to the Hall of Fame of the Leitrim County Board. Another area where Andy excelled was in the dramatic society. Drama. His first play was Home of the Hero, staged in St. Hall in 1969. Another area, his first play was, that's where I read that, Manchester Monaghan. Since then he featured in many plays, including the play by Western World, Lovely Leitrim, Autumn Fair, Fire, Philadelphia, Here We Come, The Year of the Hiker, and The Year of the Hiker, Home, Priest at Home, The Field, where he played part of the Burr McKay, and The Highest House on the Mountain. Among plays which he wrote were Dylan's American Week, The Flame Kindled, Even the Dog Cry Out, and Boycott. And he was involved in a range of local organisations, including Community Development, Tidy Town, the Credit Union, School Board Management and Pastoral Council, as already referred to, the GAA and Drama. Andy has been a local correspondent for the Redican Observer for 49 years, surely a record. And his contribution to the Kieran has been enormous, and undoubtedly would not have been possible without the support of Irene and the family.
Look at a drama in them, and you'll find one thing I will say, you'll find all the stories end very, very positively on a high note. And a reason for that is because I don't like even plays, I never liked plays that ended tragically. And I think they're uplifting that way. And there is one story, especially for you Drumkeeran people here, that I really, really like, and I wrote it especially for Drumkeeran, and it's called The Immigrant. You'll find it is very uplifting. Now that's tapping myself on the back, but I'm doing that. But I have to say, before I finish up, I have to thank Seamus here for MC. He's always on hand to do all those type of things. And he might be a bit of a trickster. He was that when he was only that height, I can remember it. So I can. And I can remember, I won't tell them. Oh, okay.
I'll see you later.
There was a couple here. The man the wife used to call him the cat, and they used to sit one each side of the fire there in Gallagher pub. And you might hear her sometimes. She mightn't be too happy when you'd hear her saying, you know. And it's saying, one day, what did I see? I saw Seamus, and he was only about that height at the time, coming out with a kitten. And there he was, patting the kitten and chatting the two of them. And it wasn't for the love of the kitten. I'll tell no more stories, but he was one of... I'm very grateful to Seamus for doing MC. But I have to say a bit about Sean Flynn, because I was privileged to get Sean Flynn to do this launch today. Because I'll tell you why. He was one of the first people I got to know. I got to know his brother Charlie in 1963. Briefly, I didn't know him. I knew of him name because I played on the second half of a match in 1963, and Charlie was midfield. I had been fullback, and then I came out to midfield. So I got to know Charlie, and I'm very fortunate that Charlie and I pioneered. Charlie was chairperson of the club, and I was secretary when we started it back. But that was it. I had known them long before that. I had known them at the back of the Mayflower at the time when I felt all women had abandoned me, or had I abandoned Irene at that time. We won't say anymore, but the Mayflower was our place. Charlie was there, and Sean used to be home. But Sean has been one of the outstanding people for Drumkeeran. Be it anything that was going on, Sean is here. He's president of our club here. So he is. And I think he's very proud of that. And Sean is known in every part of Dublin, I'd say, and probably every county in Ireland, or maybe every parish, because his big heart and his big smile and his generosity always meets everybody and all causes. So I'm very, very privileged to have Sean to launch this today. As always, there are a few thank yous. And first of all, when I wrote the book, daughter-in-law, Clodagh, she edited it for me, and she did a great job. And you'll have to admit, the cover is very, very attractive. And I owe the design of that to my son, Ronan, here. So, thank you. there is a gang of people over there, and they're all ready to dish out food here. I think they might not expect as many here, but they must have, because of a lot of stuff here. And I have to thank them most sincerely for organising that, volunteering to come in here and do all that. And they're doing that. And indeed, the ladies selling the books down at the door. I thank the Rowanberry Enterprises for the use of the community centre. They're always very, very understanding and very obliging when we want this place. And last but not least, there's a man down here, and I suppose he would be nearly known all over the county now at the moment, because I know of him doing matches now, doing videos and DVDs of matches. We are most fortunate to have John Flynn. John was with us at Pina last night, and John is here today, and John is committed, will take some photographs, and he's one of the most obliging people you could ever meet.